Hey everyone, thanks for joining today. My name is Dawn. I am an occupational therapist here in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I run a mobile outpatient clinic, and what I do is I bring the therapy to my clients. And lately what I've noticed is a lot of people keep asking me the question, like, how do I get grandma to stop falling? How do I get my father to stop falling? How do I get my sister to stop falling? And I realized that we can't ask that question. I usually spin that around to someone and say, well, we can't get them to stop falling until we understand why they're falling. So today I wanted to go over the reasons why, and so that way we can eventually get grandma to stop falling for us. So like I said, I'm an occupational therapist, and what I do is I use the therapeutic use of everyday activities to help people gain or maintain the independence that they want. So one of the things that I do is I kind of break falls into three factors. There's three things that'll kind of play a role into why people are falling. And by addressing some of those three factors, then you can eventually get them to stop falling. What I want to talk about first is environmental factors. Essentially, environmental factors are the physical space that we live, work, or we play in. And some of the things that are occurring in the environmental factors may have more significance to one person versus another. So, for example, if somebody is missing a limb or has sensation issues, the stairs may be a big environmental factor for them. However, if you have vision issues, it might be the amount of light or lack of street lights that could be something that's concerning for you. So they're going to become a little bit more significant for some versus others. These physical factors tend to be pretty easy to address. In fact, I find that this is one of the first places that people can make changes in order to reduce their risk of falls. So understanding what your environmental risk factors are can be really, really helpful in helping you understand what you can do to help grandma to stop falling. So, for example, some questions that you may want to ask yourself are, how many stairs are there to enter the house? How many stairs are there to get in and out of the public buildings that you need to use? Are there elevators? What is the quality of the sidewalk or even like the railing that you're holding on to? Are there street lights there? What's public transportation like? Are there ramps? Do the buses have the kneeling option so that you have a smaller step to get into? What's the floor conditions in your house? Do you have squeaky floors? How are the stair treads? I mean, the list goes on and on. So what I want you guys to do is take a minute, look around your house, think about your workspace, and think about some hazards that you've seen in your environmental area, because that will help you figure out what risk factors, hazards, or anything else that might exist that may contribute to a fall. The thing is you can still have really great, sidewalks and railings and stairs and still have a fall, because the next part is your physical factors. So what are the physical or physiological factors that interplay into a fall? Well, these are the things that are related to our physical body. Simply put, these are the things that kind of make us us. Okay, so it's going to be things that we can observe. We can usually test these things. We can usually measure these factors in some sort of way, generally speaking. I'm going to break these physical factors down into things about our body, our brain, and even our body chemistry. Okay, so when it comes to our body, we want to consider things that happen as a natural part of aging and that may actually be playing a part in it. So this is going to include things such as like strength, coordination, sensation, flexibility, things like that. So questions you want to consider are, what's the sensation in your toes? How many toes do you have? Have you had any other chronic conditions that may include some physical deficits? When was the last time you went to go see a doctor? Have you had a stroke? Have you had, a brain injury that's left one side of your body weaker than the other? Things like that. So you want to kind of get to know your body in regards to strength, coordination, flexibility. Next, we have to think about our brain. So we want to consider cognitive deficits that we may or may not be aware that we have. What's our memory like? Have we had anything that may have impacted the way that we think? So that could be, again, a brain injury. It could be a concussion that's just sort of been nagging and you've never really felt the same afterwards. It could be as serious as a stroke. It could just be a natural part of aging. Honestly, as we get older, our memory decreases. The speed in which we can react to things goes down, and we have to consider that. We don't want to admit that it happens, but it does, and it's going to happen to every single one of us. So you may want to ask yourself, when was the last time that you had an injury to your brain? What's your attention like? How well can you focus on tasks? How forgetful are we? How dependent on to-do lists or journals are we? Because that could impact us a little bit. How much assistance are we already getting for things such as like medication management or groceries or shopping, because we're just not handling it the same way that we normally would? We want to consider these because they affect our brain, okay? The last one we want to consider is our chemistry. So the chemistry in our body is really intricate balance. And while our body is really good at finding homeostasis, or that like rest point where it feels really good, it can be influenced pretty easily by a lot of things that we do that we don't even think about. So especially as we age, it can get more intense. So having a urinary tract infection can very much affect our chemistry, and you'll notice that attention goes down. You may not feel the same. You feel kind of lost. Maybe you feel a little confused even. So it can be affected by unbalanced nutrition, dehydration, or even alcohol use. So take a minute and honestly reflect and think, okay, so how much do we really drink? How often do we drink? Do we get blood work regularly? Do we even know what a normal thyroid level is? How about UTIs? Do we get a lot of them? And the other thing that I think is really important to consider about your physiological or physical factors is what medications are you on? So chemistry in our body can be affected by our medications. A lot of them are really, really helpful, but some of our medications can have side effects. So talk to your doctor, talk to your pharmacist, really understand what medications you or your loved one are on. So we have to really kind of think about some of these things as well in regards to time. How long have you been dealing with this physical factor? For someone who was maybe born without a limb, you're going to be a lot more adapted than somebody who maybe just lost a limb to diabetes. So we want to think about it. How long have you had this brain injury? So if you just had it, well, maybe your memory is terrible, but if you've had it for 15 to 20 years, you've probably found ways to compensate for it. So it may not be as high of a risk as it would be for somebody who just got this injury. So really consider yourself, your environment, your person. The third factor is actually going to be psychological. So what this is going to be is elements of your personality that either limit or enhance you in the ways that you engage in the world. They can make a task really easy, or these can make things seemingly impossible. So I don't know, I'm somebody who really likes things done a certain way. So that may make me more stubborn as time goes on. So making changes may end up being more difficult for me as I get older. So really consider that about yourself. I think one of the biggest psychological factors I actually see is fear of falling. This is a huge one. One, you're told by medical professionals all the time, don't fall, don't fall, don't fall, don't fall. Maybe you get some tests done and they say, hey, your strength, your flexibility, and all these other things are problems. You're at a risk to fall. So now you've thought about all your environmental and all your physical factors, and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm such a high risk, I'm going to fall. So you stop doing the things that you love and the things that you want to do because you're afraid of falling. Well, that fear of falling can actually decrease your conditioning, decrease your strength, decrease your flexibility, and now suddenly you've made yourself an even higher risk. So addressing your fear for falling is really, really important. And I think it's really important for other people to kind of consider, how high are you in your fear of falling? Getting a professional involved at this point might be really helpful. If you find yourself feeling like, I'm not going to shower today because I'm going to wait till so-and-so comes over because I'm afraid I'm going to fall, call someone. There are therapists who can help you out with that, because fear of falling can be really, really detrimental. I don't know. I just wanted to go through these three for you guys and make sure that you understand that we can't stop grandma from falling until we understand why grandma is falling. So is she falling because the environment's not working for her? Is she falling because the physical factors that she has, such as weakness or sensation deficits, are impacting her ability? Or is it that her psychological state is kind of making it almost a self-fulfilling prophecy that she's gonna fall? Does she have buy-in? Does she realize that she has some of these cognitive deficits? In which case, then she's not in line with where her current reality is versus where she thinks she is. Generally speaking, these three things kind of play together. It's not going to be just one or the other, but it's easy enough to try and address one so that maybe the others are easier to address after that. As a whole, I want you guys to kind of bring these together. This is a really good time to get out a pen or paper, write down your environmental hazards, write down some physical factors that you think might be going on, and then write down psychologically where you or your loved one actually are in regards to buy-in or fear of falling. We can't necessarily change everything. And so we have to figure out what's realistically an option for us. In the end, I think it's really important to get your professionals involved. This should be a multidisciplinary approach. So call your doctor, find out from your pharmacist what medications and side effects and what your chemistry is. You can then call a therapist to kind of come in and look at your house so they can figure out the environmental factors, and they can also start to tell you a little bit more of the physical factors. Where is your strength? How is your gait? How are you walking? Are you reaching well? What's your, body patterns when you go to reach? In order to get everybody on the same page, you really want to open up communication through all of the disciplines. By having a multifaceted approach to this, you're actually going to reduce the risk of grandma falling. I hope you guys learned a little bit of something. Thank you so much for stopping by and watching this video. Go ahead and check out some others or hit subscribe.